Hello and welcome to the BritHick, episode 24, with myself and Aaron, as usual. And today we've got a guest with us, which is our friend Lewis. Some of you may know. He's the bass player.
Crashing the party.
He's a bassist in our band Casket Feeder, obviously a mate as well. And when we started discussing earlier on in our group chat what we wanted to cover today, he wanted to hop on board. So yeah, the more the merrier.
Yeah, I can't wait to have a good old chat about gaming.
Yeah, you've probably got more to chat about it in regards to modern stuff than I do, because I play like 3 games and that's it.
Yeah, we'll see.
Connor, have you got the list of things that you wanted to cover?
Yeah, so just kind of an overview of what we want to go through. So we were having a chat earlier on and we started talking about games from like the early 2000s, like teenage years and stuff. Our teenage years, I mean. And so we just want to kind of discuss the jump from like old school gaming to like where it is now, because it's going to be different for all of us, like our experiences and stuff. So it'd be like earliest gaming memories, first console. Want to talk about arcades, because for kids now, probably not really a thing apart from like 2p pushers. But you know, like back when we were younger, like Seaside Town arcades and stuff, they had like new games coming into them. It was still a big thing. It's kind of died off now, really. And then, you know, the advances in graphics and technology, pros and cons of classic and modern gaming, and our favourite games and franchises as well. So a big pool of things to wade through.
Yeah. I guess go for earliest gaming memories then. I mean, we're probably far enough apart age-wise between the three of us that I would assume that we've probably all had different consoles. So, funny enough for me, my earliest memories is my dad playing games, and I know how long ago it was because I was still living in London. So I would have been like 3. We moved up from London when I was about 4, 5, I think it was. So, and it terrified me to a point where I was like, I can't have the game boxes in my room where I was sleeping.
Oh,
they had
really?
to be like in another room. Yeah, because he was playing Wolfenstein,
right?
The original Doom, and the original Alone in the Dark.
Yeah, probably when you're 3, that's gonna be a bit jarring.
And he had another one which isn't as well known, which is called The Castle of Dr. Brain, which was like a puzzle solver game. But the intro had like an 8-bit version of Bach Toccata in D minor.
Okay.
And then like a really loud lightning strike. So it was all in silhouette. And then a lightning strike. And looking back, it was obviously meant to be like wacky because the castle's like coming out of someone's head, but the head is like made of rock and stuff.
Right.
But as a 3-year-old, it was like traumatizing.
I can imagine an 8-bit back version would be quite horrifying to hear, to be honest. Bit frantic.
Yeah. So he was playing that on all of those on PC, so it would have been Windows 3.1 or out of DOS, like with floppy disks and stuff. Looking back, he also had like Duke Nukem, the very first Duke Nukem, which was a side scroller, and Golden Axe, but I don't remember him playing them. I just remember those, 3 or 4 games. I remember those 4 more vividly. So I was too young to play anything on those. But then I remember trying I can't remember if it was the Nintendo or like the original Nintendo or the Super Nintendo in a Toys R Us or something.
Okay.
And it was Super Mario Brothers. I think it might have been the Super Nintendo because it was in colour. Like the controller had coloured buttons on it.
Yeah, that would have been the SNES, yeah.
Yeah. So I remember that, but we never bought a Super Nintendo. They got a Mega Drive. Now, if I remember correctly, I think it was £225 was what the guy said it cost for the Mega Drive.
What would that be like relative to today's money?
Probably like
400.
what's the PlayStation? Yeah, what's the PlayStation 5 going for now? It's like 400, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
And I think it came with like 2 games or something. But so the first games that I was playing on the Mega Drive would have been your Sonics and like Desert Strike and Jungle Strike and things like that are the ones that I remember playing. And there was one called Galaxy. It was called Galaxy Quest 2. I don't know what Galaxy Quest 1 was. It was like it was kind of like I can't remember. What's the original game with the ship where you go across? Is it Gattaca? And all the stuff's coming, or Space Invaders.
Space Invaders, yeah, that's it.
It was like that, but instead of it being like vertical, it was like this. It was flat.
Oh,
so
okay.
you had the ship at the bottom like this, and then you had targets of stuff that you had to hit and avoid.
I'm pretty sure I've played that as well. Yeah, I think it's like Gallagher. I think
there's Gallagher. The one that I was playing was the one that I was playing was called Galaxy Quest, and then there was oh crap, I can't remember the bloody Turbo Outrun, which was like the very first like car game that I ever played, and one called Mars in Wars, which I didn't realise was based kind of on the Japanese manga called Guyver. They're like weirdly connected, but not officially or something.
Right,
There's something to do with like licensing rights and everything like that. I never knew about it until I went to a friend's house like in 2010 or something, and they had a Guyver model, and I was like, that looks like the guy from Mars in Wars. And they were like, yeah, there's some weird like history between Guyver and this game for the Mega Drive like back in the day. So those are my earliest ones, and that was all kind of like before moving, so I'm talking like being 5 years old or something at the time.
Yeah. Huh. I'll let you go first, Lewis. Well, before me, I mean.
Oh, cool, man. I'd say for me, it's probably I don't remember anything earlier than that. It's probably N64, playing GoldenEye, which is obviously a bit of a classic, just to go straight into. But yeah, and that, and probably like Donkey Kong. But I never had an N64, but obviously go around your mate's house in primary school and smash it out afterwards. Trying to think that, yeah, those are probably both the most vividest memories.
It's one of those weird things where the N64 was like kind of the console that the cool kids had.
Yeah,
because it came after like the PlayStation, and it was like, oh, it's double, and they had so many exclusive titles on it, like Pokemon Stadium and GoldenEye and stuff, and Lilac Wars, that it was you'd always go to their houses to play it, and it had like 4 controllers and all that kind of stuff. I remember like constantly going to people's houses just because they had their N64.
But yeah, GoldenEye is just peak, and like even when you play it now, it's just still ridiculously amounts of fun. But yeah, just classic game, to be honest, isn't it?
You know what? I think I might have never played GoldenEye.
You're joking.
No, I didn't have an N64. I had a PlayStation, so I kind of like just missed it.
Oh,
did no one you know have one, like that you went around the house or anything?
Well, funnily enough, I was about to mention this. Well, I was going to mention this when I came up. So, I used to live next door to my nan and my granddad on my mum's side, because we moved, basically when I was young, we moved to live next to them because when my granddad got ill.
Right.
And after my granddad had passed, like my nan was still living there, my cousin moved in there for a bit, and he had an N64. So I used to go around, obviously, just go around and play it with him a lot. But he never had GoldenEye, so I didn't play it then. Kind of backtrack. So my earliest console was the Mega Drive 2, not the Mega Drive, the Master System 2.
Right. Yeah.
That was one with Alex the Kid built in, so you turn it on with no cartridge in, and that game's installed. And my brother had a Mega Drive, which I was like super jealous of. And then I got a SNES. So we kind of went between the two as we grew up. And then obviously my brother's older as well, for context. He's like 7 years older than me. And then me and my brother both got a PlayStation for Christmas. And at that point, I actually didn't know what a PlayStation was. I'd never heard of it. Obviously, I was young, so I wasn't really buying magazines and stuff. Like, I started buying, remember buying CVG, like computer and video games and stuff, like a bit after that. And yeah, so the PlayStation was the first like console that I got really, really into. Like, I really enjoyed video games when I was younger, but obviously PlayStation, like, it was such a bigger thing. There was so much more games. There was like more variety of games that came out and stuff. It was like the new generation of console and everything. And then I got a PS2 when I was around 14, I think. And then it was weird, like when the Xbox 360 came out, one of my close friends that I was in school in sixth form with had that, so I used to go around his all the time and play that. So I actually played Halo like multiplayer online quite a lot then, like we were discussing in the chat earlier.
Yeah.
First Gears of War, we absolutely rinsed that.
Oh mate, that's one of the best games ever, I reckon.
It's a banger, and like obviously it just come out, so the multiplayer was like popping as well. I remember we had a spate of time where we kept like, I don't mean this in a bad way, I don't want to upset any French people, but we kept getting like put in teams with like French people, and like they literally were just talking. We didn't have a clue what they were saying. Like we did French, but obviously they were speaking like fluent French, and they weren't speaking any English, and they're trying to communicate with us. And it was like, I don't know what the fuck's going on here, mate. Like it was just really funny. But it was literally like constantly we were just getting like French people. I was like, I don't know what's happened with this, but I remember that getting super competitive, like the multiplayer on that. But it was really good. And then after that, really, from about the age of, so after sixth form and stuff, so what's that, 18, 19, kind of dropped off of consoles for about five years. And then I had a 360 myself, like quite late, played that for a bit, and then again I dropped off consoles again until, what year are we in now? Like 2018. So I got an Xbox One for Christmas in 2018. So I've kind of had like, in my youth, it was like a mainstay fixture of what like my hobbies and stuff, like video games, and I really dropped out of it for a long time. So, but the upside of that is there's so many games I haven't played, so I've got loads of stuff to catch up with.
That's true.
Very, very true. Did either of you guys play PC games, or was it always consoles?
No, I've only...
Yeah, it was always consoles for me.
Only ever done consoles, to be honest.
Yeah, same. So my brother's a PC gamer, but I've never... Well, it's one of those weird things, because I've had Apple stuff since 2009. It's kind of been difficult. There's no point in me like building a PC, like a whole PC just to do gaming and stuff. So there's not much point in me doing it. So I've just been on consoles and stuff. But I think I'm pretty similar to you, Connor, that I got a PlayStation. Both me and my brother got a PlayStation for Christmas. Played the piss out of that, then got a PlayStation 2. Then my brother got an Xbox 360, but by that point I was like out of home at that point, kind of in and out. Then the place that I was living in London, like there was one there that the guys would play. So it was kind of like just casual multiplayer stuff, really, rather than kind of sitting down, dedicated playing it. And then it was only when I think I moved into the flat in Milton Keynes with Matt was when I got a PlayStation 4.
Yeah.
So there's like a gap of like 7-8 years where I wasn't really playing anything at all, and then got the PlayStation 4, and then obviously this year with lockdown and everything, started doing the driving stuff. But I don't think I've sat down and like seshed an RPG since Final Fantasy. Is it 12 or 13? I can't remember which one has Lightning in as the main character.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I did that up until a point where it was like, yeah, but you can't defeat this boss unless you grind to level yourself up. And I was like, oh, fuck this. I just stopped.
Is there a reason you went to PlayStation over Xbox, do you think?
When the PlayStation 1 was out, the Xbox didn't exist.
I meant in, like, obviously in like latter.
Oh, don't really know. It was one of those weird things. I don't know if it was the same for everyone, but it was like PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 was the preference. Then it was the Xbox 360, and the PlayStation 3 wasn't as popular. And then the PlayStation 4 was more popular than the Xbox One. So just kind of, I'm more used to using Sony stuff than Xbox. I've never owned an Xbox. I've played other people's Xboxes, but I've never actually had one myself. Which more for me, because buying the driving peripherals and stuff for PlayStation is more expensive than Xbox, and more difficult to get hold of, annoyingly.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, I did the, I guess, the typical thing of like, yeah, PS1 and PS2, but completely missed PS3, because that's, like, saying a kind of time that was all going on when I kind of like dropped off from gaming. And then I can't remember what it was that made me get a 360. Like, if I got it new, if I bought it off my brother, I can't remember. But the reason I got the Xbox One is purely because more people I know were on Xbox One. So I was like, oh, if I want to play multiplayer, I've got more people to actually like play with.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Like, I've never, like, some people are like, you know, some people really get into like the whole console war and stuff. It's like, I really couldn't give a toss. Like,
it's the same with everything. It's like, who's your favourite football team or band or whatever?
Yeah.
Like, people just seem to take it. But yeah, there's even stuff like Crash Bandicoot versus Spyro or shit like that. It's like,
I find it really weird with stuff like consoles and that, because I know obviously there's one thing having a preference and like preferring game, like obviously when it's exclusives and stuff, like preferring certain games, whatever, like I get that. But when it's just like, no, I will die on this hill of Sony or Microsoft being superior. It's like, why are you like standing for a corporation so much? Like, I really don't get it. unless they're paying you money, you really don't owe them anything. It's like going, oh, I'm only going to play, like, I'm not going to divert this into music, but obviously that's a touchstone for all of us, like the three of us. I really like my ESP, but it's like, that'd be like me going, I'm never going to play another guitar that isn't ESP. It's that to me. I'm like, it's fucking stupid.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, you're screwing yourself over.
Unless they want to endorse me, hint, hint. But
I think for me, one of the things is that, which I guess is like the next thing we were going to talk about, like the PlayStation marketing, which is what I was discussing with Lewis earlier on before you jumped on the call. PlayStation marketing was just a massive home run, and it was so important in the mid-90s that they did what they did. Otherwise, I don't think the video game resurgence of the 90s would have never happened.
I think like just to make a quick comment, I think kind of like PlayStation and their marketing and stuff, it made gaming like cool.
Yeah. Like, it's one of those things where I didn't know about this until like 3-4 years ago, that video games in, I don't know if it was the early 80s or the late 80s, early 90s, were dead. Like, I'm assuming it was the early 80s because the Nintendo hadn't come out at that point. But people were like, "Oh, it's a fad that's over now."
Yeah, that's true.
And it won't come back. Like, there's that thing about like when Atari went under, and then there was tens of thousands of like ET cartridges and stuff that they just buried in the desert.
Yeah,
and it was an urban legend. Like, people didn't know whether or not it was true, and then they found them. And that comes off the back of, the game was crap, and they rushed to get it out. But at the same time, tastes were changing, and those kind of Atari-style consoles were just not popular.
Apparently, it wasn't just that game, though. So they did it with just so many games at that time, because there was a huge boom when it first came out. So they just rushed out so many games.
Yeah.
Obviously, that ET one's like notoriously just gets picked on. But I think there was like a lot of stinkers about that they just got out to try and make quick money. And it just killed it in the short run.
Yeah, definitely. Like during first lockdown, when we were all having to work from home, I basically watched all of like the entirety of like Angry Video Game Nerds, like every video he's put out. And there was a lot of shit like on the Atari and stuff, right? Because they were just like you were saying, they were licensing everything. Like to try and obviously like capitalize on all the like any like film or series or anything they could like tie in with, and a lot of shitty games made by like just like pretty crap developers and stuff. And it did bomb, like, and that's probably part of why they had it was like a big crash in like that age of video games.
Yeah. So what happened was, obviously you had what I would consider the first generation of consoles that we knew about. So NES, Master System, then the SNES and the Mega Drive, where it's known as the Genesis everywhere apart from here, I think. So you had those, but there was still like kids games.
Yeah.
Like they were marketed for kids, essentially, and like younger teenagers. There wasn't anything properly on there for adults. It wasn't targeted for adults, and it was considered like a very kiddie thing. Like it's kind of that thing of like watching cartoons and things like that is not something that you should be doing, kind of thing. There wasn't anything that was actually like tailored for adults. So what Sony did, or what the marketing team did that they had got to do stuff for them, was target the PlayStation for the people that were kids when the Master System came out. And it just so happens that the head of the marketing division that was doing this stuff used to be a massive rave head in the like late 80s in the UK.
Yeah.
Like when it was proper booming. So he essentially tapped into rave culture to target it at people in their late teens, early 20s that were going to raves, and was getting the main one is Wipeout, and getting all of those big beat artists on the soundtrack and hooking, I think they said it was like over 50 clubs around the country had dedicated PlayStation rooms that were playing Wipeout before release. So it was like a pre-production PlayStation and a pre-production version of Wipeout in 50 clubs around the UK, basically.
That would have been mega. Imagine just spinning your noodle off and like playing Wipeout.
Well, this is part of it. Is that So I've just bought I've spent so long looking for it. When I first found out about it again, because I forgot about it when it was first thing because I was too young. Because we're talking like 1995 at this point. It must have been like 7 years ago that I found out about it again, and I've looked on and off for this poster, which is of Sarah Cox and another guy model looking monged off their tits, basically, wearing Wipeout branded t-shirts with blood all over their faces that's come out of their noses, with underneath it saying "a dangerous game," and the insinuation is obviously that they've not OD'd or whatever, and that, alongside obviously the tapping into the rave culture, just sent the media into a massive tailspin, essentially saying that the developer and Sony are trying to peddle drugs to kids. Was essentially what people were saying.
This is cake.
Yeah, it was like that. It was that level of, well, the E in Wipeout is capitalized, so they must be talking about ecstasy.
Brilliant.
And it's like, and this was in the middle of the kind of panic about ecstasy because it was the second most popular drug behind weed, I think, at that point in time. So there was a big furore about it. And after I found out about the furore about it, I was like, I want this poster. And I've looked for like 7 years. And it just so happens today when I looked that someone is selling it. It's literally a magazine clipping of the poster from a magazine in 1995. It's a full page out of a magazine that I have I have spent 20 quid on a page of a magazine because I have spent so long looking for it.
Aaron McKenzie, archivist.
Dedication.
The thing is, I've bought like a few prints for the house and
laminate that
everything.
fucker. It turns up.
Yeah, it's going straight in a frame. The thing is that I've got a few like movie posters, reprints and stuff that have come from blooming everywhere. No, there's not one for this poster. There's no reprints for it.
Mad.
And I have no idea why, because it's such a infamous poster because of all of the... I mean, I bought it more for the fact that the ruckus that it caused when it first came out. But that... is it Cygenosis? They were proper on it, and I think that's why I liked the PlayStation so much, and in particular stuff that Cygenosis put out, because it was really good electronic music that was on all of the soundtracks for all of the games, and it was always really fast-paced games. So it was like Wipeout and Roll Cage were the main.
Oh, Roll Cage was banging. Underrated.
Yeah. And I found there's like a kind of Roll Cage game that's out called Grip, which is pretty similar, but the soundtrack isn't as good. But that was like my introduction to like Big Beat, which is why I still really like Big Beat, I think, because it was on those soundtracks. And I don't know if it was Destruction Derby or something else. It was something in that vein, but the entire soundtrack was Fear Factory.
Yeah, I think it might have been Destruction Derby.
So that was my introduction to Fear Factory as well. It was just like really random that there was just these games that had full licensed soundtracks. And obviously you guys are in a band that cover a licensed soundtrack.
Yeah.
There's a few.
Yeah.
It's only like... It's weird. It was only like 4 or 5 years after that the first Tony Hawk's game came out.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think a lot of I think then more so than now, like game soundtracks are like really big deal. Even like the Gran Turismo soundtracks and stuff.
Feeder, Just a Day.
Yeah, they were like really well chosen. Like a lot of, I guess it was they just kind of went hand in hand. I think they were more thought out. like I think they put a lot of thought into like the music for the games and stuff. It wasn't just like, oh, I just bung this on, you know. And I guess it was just a boom of consumption for like both of those mediums at the time.
Yeah, I feel like there wasn't as much in the way of original soundtracks, and I don't know if that's because this leads into the next thing about how technology's changed. That at that point in time, and I don't know this for certain, I haven't looked into it. I'm just shooting into the breeze at this point. It could be that original soundtracks couldn't be real music at that point because they couldn't take the different parts and loop them and meld them together properly at that point, which is why they just used licensed tracks of real music for things like FIFA and Wipeout and Gran Turismo, or they had your kind of 16-bit style stuff for when you're looping things. So for like Tomb Raider, for example, I think was still 16-bit sounds.
Yeah.
By comparison. And I'm wondering whether or not there must have been at some point where they went, oh, with this generation of console, we can now do this original soundtracks with real instruments and and have the processing power to be able to loop stuff and change it and interchange sections smoothly, rather than it being kind of like chip-based sounds.
Yeah, the game that really jumps out to me of having a fully scored like original soundtrack would be Final Fantasy VII. But that's the first example I can think of.
That was still 16-bit though, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it was all like original music and...
Oh, right, yeah.
There's a lot of music in it as well.
Yes, yeah. I'm trying to think if there's a... Tomb Raider never did, I don't think. I feel like the last time I played it, it came off as like jarringly quiet.
Yeah, Tomb Raider has like very sparse sounds on it.
Yeah.
Tomb Raider 2 was the first one I played like heavily, and literally it's just SFX. There's only like little music cues if you find like a secret or something like that.
Yeah, like little stings.
Yeah, it's proper quiet game actually.
One that comes to mind that was really influential for me, not that I never completed it, but Silent Hill 2. The music for that was like really like the music itself was really influential for me.
Yeah.
With like the way that the sound designs and everything were done. And that had real music themes, but I can't remember if the actual stuff in game was real music or not.
Right.
So I don't know at what point that would have switched, because I feel like that once it switched and the original soundtrack could have real music, that the licensing of songs stopped. Because I can't think of now. I'm trying to think of a modern game that's got like a licensed soundtrack rather than an original soundtrack.
Mainly like
go
on, Lou.
Well, yeah, it's like Grand Theft Auto and all those like open world sort of ones. All the radio stations are all licensed songs.
Music,
yeah, I'd say like 90% now do just have their own original scores.
I think it's kind of...
To be honest, I prefer...
Go on, Lewis, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I prefer, like, sort of games with their own scores, especially, like, going to the extent of Doom, where it's all, like, live recorded instruments, and, yeah, he just takes that to another level on Doom. But, yeah, it's certainly a lot cooler how expansive all the soundtracks have got. Yeah,
it's one of those things where when we can't remember when it changed, which is interesting to start with. But it was like when we were talking before. It's like, have you looked at? You were playing Halo Remastered, and you can flip it back to the original one.
Yeah,
and it was like, bloody hell! When people were playing this to start with, they thought it was gas. And then I went back and I found a screenshot of Gran Turismo 2, and I remember being like, this is the most realistic game in the world.
And then you look at
And
it now,
then-
and it looks like
it's-
someone's cut a piece of paper up with a picture on, and then tried to like shredded it, and then tried to stick it back together.
Yeah, exactly. And it's that. But I look back at it and go, "Oh, it was really realistic." Thinking in today's terms,
Yeah,
like, and then you look back at it and you go, "Bloody hell, that looked crap."
haggard.
Or not, not
Like,
crap, but
yeah.
like limited at the time.
I remember when like PlayStation 3 came out, and I can't remember what FIFA it was, like probably like 14 or something, and everyone was raving about how realistic all the players look, but like even when you look back to that now, it's just shocking.
Yeah.
It's like, well, it's not like PlayStation 1 Hagrid levels, but it's still just like, I can't believe people were raving about it.
Yeah, it's I remember at uni, someone at uni had an Xbox 360 and they bought God of War remastered.
Right. Yeah.
And I was like, and I think that was the first one of those of like something being remastered. And I was like, did it really need to be remastered? It wasn't that old at that point in time. And then they went, yeah, but look at the comparison. And they showed me, I was like, bloody hell, like it is a massive difference, like even in a not very long time.
That was a mad thing with the Halo one because, again, it was a game I mentioned briefly earlier. I played it multiplayer, and I can't remember which Halo that was. It wasn't the first one because this was 360. So obviously the OG Halo was on Xbox. I think, was it a launch title for Xbox?
Yes, Combat Evolved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously I'd never played the first Halo. So it's on Game Pass, the entire like remaster, like it's called Master Chief Collection. So there's a couple of them remastered and whatever. So I was like, oh, I'll play through all these. I'll start from the beginning. And I was playing through it, and obviously I just assumed like the graphics were similar to that, but just not as polished. So I didn't know about the switching thing. And then it was only yesterday I was like, oh, what? I was like, oh, I've not used this button on the controller for the whole game. Like, what does it do? And it switched to graphics. I was like, this looked fucking shit. Like,
Proper potato.
It looks like it's made out of cardboard. And obviously, like you're saying, like we're saying this now with the benefit of like hindsight and where we're at now. At the time, it probably looked amazing, but it just like, Jesus, there's like no texture mapping or anything. Everything's just flat. Yeah. And it's really dark as well, like really dark, like original one.
I'm not really like clunky on all the movement and that, but like you say, back in the day, it's like next level.
Oh yeah, you would have been losing your shit. Like, this is amazing. Yeah. Like, it's like that thing where you like we were saying, like you first hear like Dig by Mudbait, you're like, nothing's gonna be heavier than this, and then like you first see one of them games, like nothing's gonna look more real than this.
The thing with the darkness is it's to save processing power. It's the same as the first Silent Hill. The reason the fog was there was to so you didn't have to load everything.
Did you ever play the related to that? Obviously, nowhere near as good as game. Did you ever play the South Park game on PS1? It was like an FPS kind of game.
Yes,
the fucking draw distance on that was awful. Like,
yeah.
Shoddy graphics.
Yeah, bloody hell! Like that's deep in my memory. Like I can very, very vaguely remember playing that game. Yeah.
The best bit about that is you can make like piss snowballs. But the game was actually pretty shit.
What? Oh, I've lost my train of thought. I was trying to think of like we were talking about remastered games, and it's made me think about the fact that they remastered Crash Bandicoot and then they got the jump distance wrong, which made some of the levels nearly impossible to complete.
And it weren't even easy to begin with.
Very stressful, some of it.
So yeah, I couldn't do Ripperoo.
Really?
Because that whole boss fight is jumping.
Yeah,
you have to avoid him, and if you end up in the water, you're fucked. But yeah, the jump distance is wrong, so you just like you can't get around it. I don't know if they've updated it. I didn't play it enough to find out whether or not they sorted it out. But yeah, I guess one question would be, what was the first game that you remember like doing a ridiculous session on? Like you got a game and you were just like, or you sit there and you're like, oh, I've been sat here for like 7 hours.
Metal Gear Solid.
It's Metal Gear Solid, so yeah, okay.
Yeah, and that's the game I finished the most. Like now and again, I'll just dig out a PS2 or a PS1 and just play Metal Gear Solid and complete it again. Like, no spoilers for later on, but it's my favourite game ever, and I don't think there's a better game than Metal Gear Solid.
Are you going to wait? Is there any rumouring of there being a remaster of Metal Gear Solid?
I don't know. If they do it, I will be on it like a tramp on chips. But even if they didn't, they don't need to. That's the thing. Like, it's just fucking timeless.
Yeah. What about you, Lewis?
I'd have to say it would probably Driver 2.
Oh, I forgot about Driver.
Because I got it in a bundle with like a steering wheel.
That must have been an absolute ball ache to steer with.
Poor mate.
Turning a shed.
Yeah, like, well, that was PlayStation 1, wasn't it? So, yeah, it was a bit primitive, but I just loved it so much. And I swear for, like, PS1 game, there was a lot of different, like, game modes on it. So, obviously, you have, like, main campaign, you could have, like, bits where you go to, like, ultimate, like, wanted level, you got to escape the police and stuff like that. But, yeah, I remember just loving that, so... Yeah, and then I think the next one after that would probably be Simpsons Hit and Run. I'm
seeing a trend.
A lot of driving.
Yeah. I remember when... if you want to know how old Driver and Driver 2 is, I remember the Grand Theft Auto 3 coming out and people accusing it of cloning Driver 2.
Yeah, mad.
Because obviously Grand Theft Auto 1 and 2 and Grand Theft Auto London were all top-down.
Yeah.
And then Grand Theft Auto 3 was such a departure, and a lot of it was based around stealing a car and driving places and doing certain things that people were just like, the Rockstar have ripped off Driver.
This is a bit of a backtrack, but it's just made me think of something. We're talking about soundtracks and original soundtracks. The first, obviously, couple of Gran Turismo games, they made all those songs for those radio stations. They weren't real licensed songs.
Oh, Grand Theft Auto, you mean?
Yeah, sorry, Grand Theft Auto. Yeah, they made all those like fake songs for the radio stations.
Right.
That's mad, actually. I didn't know that.
Yeah. They wrote them all. Like, they had to make... They were like, basically, we want to create radio stations, but there was something to do with licensing. I don't think... They either didn't have the budget, or I might have this wrong. Like, I actually read a big article with like interview with the developers specifically about the soundtrack. And they either didn't have the budget for it, because obviously it was like an unknown entity at the time, and like Rockstar were pretty small fry, or because of the content, like people wouldn't license the music to it. It's one of those two, and they're like, right, well, we want these radio stations to make it like immersive, so we're going to have to make the songs.
Yeah.
But
I think it was the first. I don't know if it was the first. In my mind, it was the first hard 18 game that had like the film 18 sticker on it.
I remember Duke Nukem 3D was 18, but that's because it had like pixelated tits in it.
That it did. What? I'm just trying to think of Devil May Cry. I seshed that. I think I completed it in like 4 sittings, the whole lot.
That was a banger.
And the first Killzone, I seshed that as well. And I was like, oh, that was really good. And then looking back at it, it probably wasn't a very good game. That was Sony's answer to Gears of War, I think, at the time.
Okay.
And it wasn't as good as Gears. It was meant to be like more gritty, but I've seen some screenshots of it, and it was very beige. Like the game as a whole was very beige. You just made me think though. When we were saying about Driver, did you play any of the like later on games for Driver?
I think I did 3, but even though it's probably a lot better, it just didn't have the same like charm to it. I didn't think so. And obviously at that point, there were more Grand Theft Autos out, which were definitely better.
Yeah.
So I think it just got a little bit lost.
So there is. I was watching a video on what would a second-person game be, because obviously you've got first person and you've got third person, and they were trying to explain the concept of what second person is. And they talk about one mission in Driver, and they explain the story of this Driver game, and it is the most out there, insane thing. Essentially, you play a cop that can astral project into someone else.
What?
So you're a cop that can astral project into this guy, and then this guy is infiltrating into a gang. So it's not you, it's the guy. But there's a mission where you're astral projecting into the guy in the gang with the head of this gang, and they're like, yeah, you need to follow this person to because we're going to kill him. We think that they're onto us, kind of thing. And you get out behind him, and it's the cop that's in the car. So you're in the car behind yourself.
I'm not having this.
Which one was this?
I can't remember. And essentially, you're following them, yeah?
Hmm.
And it's like, chase them. So you chase them and you steer. However, you're steering the car in front of you instead of the car that you're in. You're steering the car that you're chasing.
Okay.
And they use that as the example, the only example they can think of second person gaming.
Fucking hell.
Which
fair play to whoever came up with that.
It's the one that didn't catch on.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where, like, obviously Grand Theft Auto got so popular, and it's like Grand Theft Auto just kind of does the same thing but in different eras, I guess would be the easiest way to put it. And then Driver's like, oh yeah, we've got a cop that astrally projects into some guy in a gang.
Catchy.
It's just like, okay, that's completely mental, but fair enough, whatever. I'm now trying to think of like franchises that went completely.
Do you reckon one of the developers was sort of like listened to Crack the Sky and he was like, got a fucking great idea here, boys. Hear me out.
It could have been, but I feel like Crack the Sky was a little bit too abstract for that being like literally, yeah, I'm a cop that actually projects into someone, rather than being was it like a paraplegic that astrally projects into Rasputin or something?
Yeah, it's mental.
Is that like the equivalent of playing as like the linesman in a FIFA game or something?
Well, you're like doing FIFA, you're doing Football Manager, except you don't actually do any of the management, you just stand at the side of the game.
I just want I want Chris Kamara FIFA.
Yeah. New FIFA game where you're the commentator.
That's all I want. Like
the dream.
It's like a cross between FIFA and SingStar. You got to hit all the notes.
Yeah.
You got to do the traditional English commentator thing and butcher all the foreign pronunciations.
Yeah.
Never get them right. That was a weird phenomenon that doesn't exist anymore. Guitar Hero.
Yeah, and Rock Band.
Like, yeah, and well, I said about SingStar, but all of those things, it was like guitars. Then it was Rock Band, so drums and guitars. Then out of that, they did a keyboard one. There was a DJ one.
Yeah, I remember, I never played it, but I remember like DJ Hero coming out. It's like, we're really milking the sound dry here, ain't we?
I know there's like no relevance on how good at Guitar Hero you are to actual guitar, but were you boys any good at it? Because I was useless.
Mate, it's easier playing real guitar.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
If someone went to me, learn Through the Fire and the Flames on real guitar or Guitar Hero, I'd be like, I'd learn it on guitar, mate. Like,
I found it easier to play on like a medium or hard difficulty than the easy difficulty, because the easy difficulty didn't make any sense rhythmically.
no, it's not intuitive at all. Like, it doesn't matter. It's weird.
So when you're a musician, playing on the easy setting just makes no sense. It's like, no. But no, I wasn't very good. But it's one of those things I never had. I wasn't going to spend, I think they wanted like £100 or something for the controller in game or something at the time that it was out.
Jesus.
I was like, no thanks. I say this and I've spent God knows how much on that bloody sim rig. So, like, horses for courses. If you really want to play Guitar Hero, you're going to spend the money. Whereas I like driving, so I've spent a lot of money on driving stuff.
I think that makes more sense than a little plastic guitar with 5 buttons on it.
The worst thing is that stuff, like the wheel and pedals that I've got, are like the cheapest you can buy that aren't complete crap. Like some of the professional quote unquote, there's mad bank in it. That's something else as well. Who knew in 1999 that you could become a millionaire playing games?
Mad. Yeah, I watched this. One sec. Like, I'm obviously going to keep the bloody recording going. I'm just going to check this on YouTube quickly, because this is an interesting watch, actually, just as an aside. But I just can't remember what the series was called.
It's just a shame that the games that are paying mad bank are crap.
Fortnite.
Fortnite, previously it was League of Legends, Dota 2, and StarCraft.
So there's a
StarCraft was alright.
There was a series on MTV in like the early 2000s called True Life, and it was like every episode was like a different kind of not a profession. I would say like a different kind of like lifestyle or whatever. And there's one it's called I'm a Gamer, like professional gamer. And
I think I've seen this. Wasn't it like 3 or 4 guys in a house that they were all games exclusively?
Yeah, so there was they followed 3 different sets of people. So there was one guy who was like the champion at this like arcade game. It was a golf game that was exclusively played in arcades, and it was like I'm trying to describe it, but you didn't have a peripheral like a golf club. You kind of like slid this thing with like different, obviously, degrees of like power or however you wanted to like shoot the ball. Like it's like this kind of like motion mat, like from what I can remember. But he was like the top player, or one of the top players. And then there was like those 4 guys that didn't game competitively at all, but they were just like proper gaming junkies. Yeah, they lived together. Like it's like a couple of them to the point where like this is like an actual problem. Like one of the lads, he just constantly like he worked, but basically if he wasn't at work, he was gaming. But he'd sleep like 3 hours a night. I remember this one bit, and like he came home from his like work and he'd game on his breaks. And he was like 2 hours late back to his work because he was gaming and shit. And it's just like, mate, you've got an actual problem. He looked fucked like all the time as well. Obviously, just knackered. It's not good for you. And another guy was like an actual professional competitive gamer, and he was like the best ranked Unreal player. But for context of what we're saying now, people can make millions in competitive gaming. He won the top prize, and it was like 30 grand.
Yeah.
And then
it's crazy how much it's exploded.
Yeah, and he was saying like at first his parents were like, "Oh, are you sure about this?" Like, and when he showed like basically he made his living by that point already. I think he was only like 19 or something. He made all of his money gaming. He paid all of his bills in that gaming. He paid his rent. He bought a car and that. And his parents were like, "Oh, okay, fair enough." And then obviously he won like 30 grand. He set his own company up and stuff to do with gaming. So like he actually invested it really smart. But yeah, everyone like at that point it was like fucking hell, 30 grand like gaming. Now it's like millions. It's mental.
Yeah, it's gone. Well, it's a legitimate sport now, isn't it?
Esports.
I remember there when an esports bar opened in London, and I went, but at that point in time, or just the time that I went there, it wasn't really showing anything particularly. It was just kind of like screen captures of other people playing games.
Yeah.
But the big tournaments and stuff is crazy. Just like the amount of people that go to them. Well, obviously pre this year.
I kind of feel like in the last decade, it's sort of just become like a cool thing. Whereas I remember even in like secondary school, like chatting about like gaming with friends, and you'd be a fucking nerd or something. Like it wasn't really. Well, I didn't think anyway. Yeah, it wasn't really like a cool thing. Whereas now it seems like everyone's into it because it's like a little bit hipster and just seems a lot more. I don't know what the word is.
I feel like it depends on the game. It's like with anything like that's like on the outskirts. Eventually, it gets dragged into mainstream culture.
Yeah.
You have to think. I can't think of many things that would have had adverts outside of like the main kind of really big titles. But then in the last few years, you've got like loads of blooming games that have like mainstream primetime advertising. So yeah, it's a big money spinner now. I'm just trying to think of like the other kind of like big money spinners and stuff. Like with the sim racing and stuff, they do have cash prizes and things like that. But yeah, it's not as much as things like Fortnite and Dota and stuff like that. But with the sim racing stuff, the target really isn't the money. The target is to get a ride in a real car.
Okay.
Which happened like you. So the first there was the GT Academy, which was like Gran Turismo Academy, and then the first winner of that, Jan Marlenborough, now lives in Japan and races Super GT, which is like the Japanese kind of GT series. And then there was World's Fastest Gamer, and like the winner last year was a guy called James Baldwin, who races in British GT. So they've got legitimate seats now, and they've now got a job racing out off the back of gaming.
Oh, fair play.
Which I think is kind of like exclusive to racing. It's one of those weird things where I think that's the only game that you can actually physically transfer those attributes into the thing that it's emulating.
Right, yeah.
Apart from maybe something like a light gun shooting game, potentially. I mean, you're not going to be the world champion FIFA player and get a shot at playing for like a League One side. Do you know what I mean? It's not going to work that way. Whereas if you're doing the racing stuff in the actual with the wheel and the pedals and everything properly, you can transfer those to the real world more easily.
Yeah, 100%. One thing
about arcades.
Yeah, so I'd say that actually, like, one thing I really want to touch on is like arcades, and since you mentioned like light gun games as well. So yeah, like I have really vivid memories of like we used to do like as a family we used to go on holiday to Cornwall like pretty much every year, like in the summer, and obviously a lot of arcades there, like beach town, and like Time Crisis was a massive game at that time for like arcades. Like the first like we had Virtual Cop and stuff like that, but like Time Crisis was like better, and it was like a massive deal. Like obviously this like immersive kind of light gun game in an arcade, like the massive pedal and like the big fucking chunky gun and everything. Like I remember like putting a lot of a lot of quids into that. Something like me and my dad used to play together, and then we actually got it for like PlayStation at home as well. With the G-Con game, the G-Con gun, But yeah, like I just remember like it used to be like a real thing. Like new games and stuff will come out in the arcades, like Tekken when that was out in the arcade. That's why I bought Tekken, because I played it like Tekken 2 in the arcade so much.
Right.
When we were on holiday, and like, I remember the Lost World game coming out, like, and it was like the machine was like the Jeep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like arcade beat 'em ups and stuff were like a big deal then.
With the way too many buttons.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think. I went to Sega World when it still existed. It wasn't around for very long. And I remember that had Ace Combat with the gyroscope.
Oh, okay.
But I wasn't old enough to go in it, which sucked. And I've never seen one in the flesh since. So basically you got strapped into the seat and you played Ace Combat and the whole thing moved. Well, it's a gyroscope, so the whole lot moved.
Yeah.
But I was too small to use it at the time, unfortunately, and I've never seen another one since. First time I went on holiday abroad, the resort that we were at had Sega Rally.
Oh, okay.
It was only 100 pesos instead of £1, and 100 pesos was like 30p. So I just bundled like many 1,000 pesos into Sega Rally there, and Sega World became the Trocadero.
I've been there.
Or
Just be a minute.
And it's all shut now, and it was kind of shutting at the point in time that I was there anyway. But they had like loads of like the DDR machines and things like that. So every time I went there, it was like play Dance Dance Revolution and Time Crisis essentially, and maybe one of the like motorcycle games with the lean in.
Oh yeah.
But the last arcade I went to is actually at South Bank, which is the Namco arcade, which is quite cool. I don't know if you've ever been to it, Lewis.
Nah.
So it's near London Dungeons, like by London Eye. You go and you kind of go downstairs.
Is this Namco arcade?
Yeah. There's like bumper cars in the middle of it, which is odd. And then all the way around the outside is like the arcade machines, and then there's a bar, and like the main thing that I was playing there was probably the air hockey machines more than anything else, to be honest. But it's quite cool. It makes me think of like Sega World rather than Trocadero. Trocadero was like run down as fuck whenever I went there. Like I think I went there like the last 2 years before it got shut down for good. Lots of shady characters around there, kind of lawyering around and stuff. But yeah, Namco arcades get pretty good. That's the last one I can think of outside of kind of seaside style arcades now. And as you said, the majority of seaside arcades are now the 2p pushers.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's like my main memories of kind of arcades and stuff. But it was always and the one in Milton Keynes.
City Limits, yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's arcade. There's like 2 arcades in the Escape still, but like City Limits was fucking banging. It was massive.
I've really enjoyed. It's one of those weird things where like the games is all well and good, but like the general vibe of a place.
Yeah. Like there's always like good arcades. There was always like a buzz. Like,
yeah.
High energy kind of vibe.
Yeah.
I actually finished House of the Dead 3 in City Limits. I was on the highest.
Really?
Yeah, I think I had like the 2nd or 3rd highest score. But it cost me about £20 because the last boss is a shithead.
It's at that point where you're like, well, I'm in it for a penny, in it for a pound. At
Literally,
that point, I might as well just keep pumping them in.
I don't know how I done it, and I don't mean it to be like I'm not showing off, because like it's the only time I managed to do it. I'd never got into the final boss, and I'd managed to get to the final boss like on about £3. I was like, this is amazing.
Right.
I was like, this is amazing. Like, because it was the sloth. I don't even remember it. Like, there was the sloth boss was always a bastard, like, to beat without dying.
Was that the fourth boss?
Well, it's weird because you could choose the order you did the levels in.
Oh, right, okay.
But yeah, the big dickhead sloth that like you fought it in the massive cage, and it's like the final range of it like jumped from the top of the cage. That was like its last attacks it started doing. It was just a shithead. Like,
yeah.
But yeah, I managed to get to like the last boss, and I only put about £3 in. And I was like, oh. So yeah, I spent like £17 on the last boss. And it's like you're saying, it's like I've got to do it now. Like,
you're at that point. You're never going to get there again, probably.
No.
So you might as well just like carry on doing it.
But yeah, that was City Limits was great actually, like really good.
R.I.P.
And we got bloody
replaced by Casino.
shit arcade that is.
I've known. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, well, casino stuff. It's like, oh, well, it's kind of like an arcade. Well, it's kind of like an arcade game, except way less fun.
Yeah.
Way more expensive.
I don't know, mate. I did put House of the Dead £20 up, so.
Yeah, that's true. I guess we could start talking about franchises and stuff, because, like I said, you could talk about some franchises that went completely to pot.
Yeah.
The first one to come to mind is Devil May Cry went completely off the rails. They tried to pull it back, but I don't think I haven't played a Devil May Cry properly since 3 came out, and that was fucking ages ago. I don't know what they're on now, 7?
Yeah, Capcom kind of had a thing, like, a bit of a habit of doing that, like, because Resident Evil went really, like, off kilter as well, but they've brought it back. I'd say they've brought it back round now.
Yeah. I think it's going to sound really weird. They over-Japanesed certain franchises.
Yeah, Resident Evil got really stupid.
Like, they redesigned Dante, which did not go down well.
No.
Which I completely understand, because they made him completely unrecognisable from the original Dante. Trying to think. I mean, you were saying about your favourite game is Metal Gear Solid, but would you say it's one of your favourite franchises, or just that it's as a standalone?
Probably not. Really, I've only played 1, 2, and 3. Like, well, Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty, being specifics. Obviously, I know there was Metal Gear way back, and Snake Eater, and then I never played 4. But I mean, personally, I'd say like I've seen 4. I've seen 4 being played through. And I had to phrase that carefully, and it's like, I've seen 4 play. 5, nothing. I've not played it. I've not really seen it played, but I've followed enough of it on the internet and seen like enough discussion and whatever. And it's kind of like it. I'd say really you only need those 3. Like, yeah. That's the essence of like Metal Gear, and they that kind of went a bit mental as well. Like, I know Metal Gear Solid, like. The second one's pretty ludicrous. Like, the actual overarching plot and like the revelations at the end of it and the comments on like society and stuff are actually like pretty profound. Like, especially now in consideration of like how people consume the media and like social media and shit like that. It's really like the last kind of 2 hours of that game is pretty fucking mental actually. Like the things it comments on and whatever. That's like, you could do a whole podcast on the last 2 hours of that game. It's mental. But I still think the first one's the best. Like, it's so. I think it's perfect. Like, it's cinematic without being bogged down by cutscenes. Like, you never had like big. I know you've obviously had games like Final Fantasy and stuff, but you never had like big plot, story-driven game like that. That was like kind of like world realism until that. And I just think as they went on, it kind of got a bit more and more out there, and I think by 4 and 8, it kind of just gone off the deep end a little bit.
Yeah, was 5 the one with Quiet?
Yeah.
Because I saw the concept art for Quiet and I was like, this is bullshit. And I was just like, this is no good.
This is a bit,
you need to tone that shit down.
Like,
You're showing your fucking arseholeness.
Yeah, a bit weird. Like, because that's, I mean, not to like change the conversation completely, but yeah, it's quite interesting. You look at that character, and then you look at Meryl in the first game, who's basically like a lead character and like is like hard as fuck, basically.
Yeah, and the clothes that she's wearing is a black strap top, black combat trousers, and black combat boots.
Yeah.
Compared to Quiet, who's wearing essentially a load of belts.
Yeah.
It's just like, who is this
like
person?
It's like that meme. It's like in beat 'em ups or RPGs, like female characters, the more advanced armor you get, the less covered they actually are.
Yeah, pretty much. It was like she had come out of like a Dead or Alive game.
Yeah.
It was just like, no, thanks.
That's a franchise that I maybe didn't fall off, but I don't think you could get away with it these days. Like Dead or Alive, it's a bit tone deaf.
Yeah, I'd say so. But then when it was coming out, you have to like, that was during WWE Attitude Era.
Oh yeah, exactly. It was
and
off
think
the
about
time,
the stuff that
but
was
now
going
you're
on.
Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, like volleyball. Yeah.
It's beat 'em up, lads, not boob 'em up.
I would say that Tekken went off the rails, but Tekken was always off the rails. Like some random old guy that organises a tournament in order to summon a demon is essentially what Tekken is, and then his son betrays him, and then his grandson gets possessed partially, and all of the other characters have got their own equally wacky backstories, including someone that has a pet bear that you can also play as the bear, and another playable character that is also a bear that is attracted to the other bear.
I remember with 3, the little one of the bonus characters was that little dinosaur.
Oh, Gone.
Yeah, and he could fart.
Yeah, that's based on was it a comic character or a actual TV show character? I can't remember. That's a bonus character that is a tie-in to something else.
Oh, okay.
It's almost like one of the first games that did that. Because now you get blimmin' all kinds of shit, like bonus characters and stuff, don't you? Like in the Mortal Kombat games, you get the Terminator and...
Yeah. There's loads of crossover now, isn't there, between like properties and stuff.
Yeah. Beat 'em ups are a weird one, because when I think about it, they went backwards when they transferred from 2D to 3D. Because if you think about like the first Mortal Kombat games and the first Street Fighter games, because they were using that I can't remember what the actual name of it was. It was like photogrammetry, where they were recording real people doing all of the moves.
Yeah.
And then they pasted them onto a 2D background. So it looked really good for the time. And then when they went to 3D, you remove the people, then the characters are completely made of polygons, and objectively they looked worse.
Yeah.
And it's the only... Off the top of my head, it's the only thing that I can think of where that transfer from 2D to 3D made it look way worse for quite a while. I don't think anything else that went from 2D to 3D suffered as badly.
Yeah, it was really difficult, I guess, at that stage, because they were trying to make things look as realistic as possible, but it's a lot to demand from, I guess, the capabilities of tech they were using.
Yeah, but and I think Tekken might be the only franchise that's still ongoing that never had a two. Oh, Soul Calibur, I don't think ever had a 2D.
No, it didn't.
That's another franchise that fell massively into fan service. Jesus Christ!
Only kind of really dipped in and out of Soul Calibur.
I played the second one, but yeah, Jesus, like that's another game that falls foul of very objectifiable character design.
Mm.
Can you think of any like big franchises that either you have been a fan of for a long period of time, or one that might have like fallen by the wayside, Lewis?
No, I've been trying to think, but
FIFA.
Yeah. Oh God. Don't get me started. Yeah, there's nothing really like probably jumps out.
Do you think Grand Theft Auto has maintained its quality?
Yeah, I think so. The last one was just incredible, and like they're still releasing like new online content and that for it. Like I think it's 7 years old now, which is mental. Still like millions of people doing it online.
What?
So
was it 4 that kind of was a bit of a mishit with the Russian guy?
So I don't think I played 4. I went from 3 straight to San Andreas.
Right. So there's 3 Vice City, San Andreas. And...
Oh no, I did Vice City was banging, but yeah, I remember people saying I think it was 4. Yeah, it didn't hit as well as the others.
And then 5 came out, and it was, well, if they're still releasing content for it, and how old's that fucking game now?
Yeah, like I said, I think it's like 7 years or something, which is just crazy.
What's your favourite one of Grand Theft Autos?
I'll have to say 5. I think it's like the first game I've played where you can like interchange between 3 main characters.
Yeah.
So did you guys play it?
Nah, because like I'm saying, obviously I kind of fell out of consoles, and I don't have the PlayStation, so.
I kind of like dip in and out of things now. Like I'm not really playing games where you get massively invested in time wise. Like,
yeah,
with racing and stuff, it's like I could do a race and it's like 40 minutes and I'm in and out kind of thing.
But yeah, like 5 just had the mental concept. Yeah, 3 main characters, all quite different plot lines, but then they all obviously interlink with each other.
Yeah.
So that is just so cool. And then at the end, you obviously have a bit of a decision of like which ones you can kill off, or so you can decide like the future of all of them. But yeah, I thought it was incredible. I've never played. So I think that's like the first one I've heard of having like interchangeable like main characters.
So, did any of the Resident Evil games have it where you could change in between, or was it just that they were completely separate campaigns?
There was it wasn't Code Veronica, it was I can't remember if it was Resident Zero or whatever. It was one of the ones that was out on Dreamcast as well. You could actually switch between characters at will.
Right.
They'd be at different points of the plot or location, but you could switch between.
Right. That might be Code Veronica.
I think you can do it in that, and then there's another one as well where you can do it in Hissing Hell. Can't remember which one it was. Again, another franchise which has had like so many titles in it.
Yeah, because
there's Assassin's Creed, one of those you could do it actually.
Right.
I'm not sure if that came out before or after.
I feel like, well, it depends on which one of the franchises
it was. Syndicate, which was the one based in London.
I feel like that was after
these
Grand Theft Auto. Assassin's Creed, another franchise that the entire premise is insane.
Yeah.
It's like,
mental.
You're an assassin from the 1100s. Okay, cool. Oh, but actually you're a guy that's in a vat that is the direct descendant of that assassin. We've just kind of porting you into his body back in time.
Just a Matrix, isn't it?
But the
it's just a second. It's just an actually projecting copper
back in time. So Resident Evil 2 had 2 people, but it was 2 completely separate campaigns, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think it was 2 discs.
It was. You are correct. Oh,
so you had the Leon disc, and was it Jill for Resi 2?
It's Claire.
Is it Claire?
Claire Redfield.
Claire Redfield, yeah. Which one was Jill 1 then?
Yeah, Jill was in 1, and then it was Jill in 3 as well.
Right. Because Claire is Chris's sister.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Twisted sister.
I'm trying to think of like other games.
So Tony Hawk went quite downhill. After Underground?
Yeah, Underground banging. Like Underground was sick. Like Underground 2 and like American Wasteland and that pretty like wavy. Like,
yeah, and then they I think it was like 5 they released not too long ago, and I just heard it was pretty shocking. Still not played the remaster yet though.
I haven't either. What are we doing, Lewis? We're just posers, really.
I know. Yeah, big time. Can't skate. Haven't played the remaster.
I feel like it's that went off the rails when Neversoft went under.
Yeah,
and they got bought out, and it just like lost direction basically, and it all went to pot.
I think it had a bit of an identity crisis as well because skate became so popular as well. It's like Tony Hawk's like was it 5 where it's like more realistic now. It's like it's not really what you want from Tony Hawk's.
Nah, and they did one where you could buy a board with it.
Right.
I can't remember which one it was, but yeah, you could buy a board and try and do the tricks that way, but that just sounds like fucking mental.
Yeah, it's a bit like, alright mate, like
just like you say, it's just you don't need it to be ultra realistic. Like it's quite obvious you can't pull off some of the tricks that you do in the game. Like that's the fun of it.
I don't know what you're on about, mate. I'm twist out of my bed every morning.
Dark slide down the banister.
I just do a cry stare down the stairs into the shower. I'm just trying. Wrestling games.
Yeah, they're a funny one. Like speaking of, like they've always kind of been up and down. So speaking about things being realistic or like a bit exaggerated. So the earlier ones, I remember like WWF in Your House on the PS1. That was really over the top, and it had like almost beat 'em up elements to it. You could do like these special moves where they do like ridiculous stuff and that, but it was styled quite like wacky as well. And then I remember Warzone and Attitude were like really difficult to do moves. They were almost like Street Fighter-esque commands to do moves and stuff. They were pretty like and like they were quite sluggish games and whatever. And it was like another game we bought up earlier on in WhatsApp was SmackDown. When SmackDown came out, they really like nailed it. It was more like an arcade kind of playing experience. It was like really fast paced, simple. Like to do your finisher move, it was like it was L1 once you filled the meter up. So it was like really accessible, really fast paced, like just sick as well. Because you could have all the hardcore matches and like you could go backstage and everything. It was just like it was larger than life, but in a way that actually like lent itself well to that. Because obviously wrestling is inherently like quite ridiculous, especially then.
Yeah.
And then they kind of got like SmackDown versus Raw was still pretty decent, and like they got a bit more realistic, but they kept a good balance. But now, I don't know, like I've not kept up with them for a little while, but more recent ones, of like people I know that are fans of like wrestling games and stuff, they're like it has fallen off a little bit.
So they fell into the yearly trap of putting out a game every year and having it where it has the year name on it. And the last one, which would have been 2020, was absolutely abysmal. It had so many, and it was
so many like glitches,
so many bugs. Yeah, so many bugs and glitches, like wrestlers falling through the floor, like doing submission moves, and the hand like just goes through the wrestler's head, or like the hair animation was all completely crap. Yeah, there's like loads and loads and loads of videos of just glitches for the last WWE game. To a point where I think they were considering pulling the plug on the games even before COVID. So it might be that we don't see another wrestling game for 2021 at this rate. But yeah, it's I mean, obviously it's difficult to keep a franchise going, especially for gaming stuff, like for 20 years plus. I'm trying to think. I mean, Gran Turismo for me is probably still a game. So I played 1 and 2, and 1, 2, and 3, and then I wasn't playing games, so I missed 4, 5, and 6. And I've just gone back to playing Gran Turismo Sport, and 7's coming out. But I still feel like that's a marker. That's a franchise where the game comes out and people are still like, yeah, it's going to be a good game. Like, they're not going to second guess it.
Yeah.
I guess the same could be said for Doom now. I don't think people would say that the Doom franchise has released an objectively bad game.
No, I think that's fair to say. And funny enough, actually, yesterday, so obviously this was prior to us discussing this for today's episode, I was watching a retrospective review and like short play run of Doom 3. So not the like Doom 3, the one that came out on PC, like the 3D Doom game.
Yeah.
And at the time, it got a fairly kind of mixed response, like a bit of a lukewarm reception, because people were like, it wasn't Doom enough. It wasn't.
It was very different. It was more survival horror.
Yeah, but obviously, if you take it like it's actually a really good game, if you actually if you treat it as its own thing, and yeah, it's really like pretty cool entity, I guess, on its own right. Like, it's definitely got like, it's not like, this isn't Doom at all. Like, it's not a full on like run and gun game. That's the thing. Whereas obviously the last 2 editions of Doom are very much like full on. Like,
yeah. So the main complaints from people were the slow pace, because it didn't have the like 1.5 times running speed.
No.
The redesign of certain enemies, Pinky, for example, was like massively redesigned, and people didn't really like it. And yeah, the fact that you were more vulnerable, essentially, it was a survival horror rather than a run and gun.
Yeah.
I think it also had the mechanic where you could only hold the torch or your gun. You couldn't hold both at the same time.
Oh, that's good.
So if you're in a dark area, you had to like have the torch out, and if you saw an enemy, you had to swap out into a gun, but then shoot in darkness.
You don't have to worry about that in Doom now, because you just illuminate your path by fucking shooting everything constantly.
Yeah.
just guided by muzzle flare.
Yeah. So I feel like that was... I think Doom 3 had that mechanic. I might be getting it confused with another game, but I don't think I was. But another thing you could say about certain games that were massively popular that just seem to have disappeared for no real reason. Portal.
Yeah.
Half-Life, which are kind of the same thing. The main theory behind it is Valve are spending so much time in running Steam as an entity because they created Steam that they just don't have the resources to recreate or create another game.
Crazy.
Like Half-Life 3 has been rumoured to be out for 10, 11, 12 years. They released that like Half-Life Alyx VR thing. Quake is the other one. I don't think Quake has had a modern generation version at all.
Nah.
Worms. I think they did a version of Worms, but Worms kind of got a little bit too overly stylized in a way that I didn't particularly like. I think the mechanics of it is exactly the same. You have a team of worms and you're trying to blow up the other team of worms.
Yeah.
But I feel like that one didn't transfer across as well as some other ones. I mean, the main one that never transferred across the 3D properly was Sonic.
Oh, yeah. Proper stinkers.
Yeah, that did not go across well at all. Did anyone watch the film?
Nah.
No, I didn't either. Apparently, it's a lot of Jim Carrey eating the scenery. Pretty much. Are there any games that have genuinely, like, properly shit you up?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I've got a real love-hate relationship with survival horror.
Yeah.
Horror films don't bother me at all. Like, as you lads will know, like, quite enjoy them. But survival horror games actually have to really like be in the mood to play. Otherwise, they're just like actually they genuinely stress me out. And I think it's that element of like you're in control of it, so you feel like more immersed. Obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the first time I played Resident Evil 1, I wouldn't like it's literally the first cutscene where you see the zombie turn around. I fucking shit it. Like, I didn't know what, I couldn't control it properly. I got killed by the zombie, and like, I remember, I bought it. My mum was like, "Are you sure you can play this game?" I was like, "Yeah, it's fine." And then it happened, and I literally took it straight out, put it in the case, and I didn't touch it for like 2 months. So, is that game good? I was like, "Yeah, it's great." Like, literally, I was like, "Yeah, it's brilliant." So yeah, that shit me up. But then it's weird, like, it was only really the first one, because the second one, I played so much, I completed it, like, to the point, so how old would I have been, like 10, 11? I could finish Resident Evil 2 on like A grades in under 3 hours.
Bloody hell.
Like, I could do it on the regular, I'd be like, oh, I'll finish Resident Evil 2 now.
From beginning to end.
Yeah, just rinse that game. So it's, I don't know what it was about the first one, just like kind of threw me off a bit. And even the remaster, like the GameCube one, I'm like, oh. And it's just like years later, I remember playing it. Like, me and my mate were playing it at like 2 a.m. in like the pitch black.
Never a good idea.
Yeah,
really.
and I remember this one bit, I walked down the stairs and like there's a light, like the lighting effects in that game are fucking wicked. They did such a good job on that remaster. And this was like, how long ago was that on GameCube? Like, yonks now.
Yeah, 2010, 2011, something like that.
Yeah, they really pushed that console like on that remaster. So the lighting effects are mad. Like, I remember going down one of the staircases and there was like, and it wasn't like a predetermined sequence that was going to happen. It just happened to be, I was there at the point and there was like a lightning flash outside the window, but there's a zombie in like an alcove and it just illuminated. I was like, fucking hell, like, just like right next to where I was. But like, yeah, I think it's just like they really nailed the atmosphere in that one because you're in the mansion, it feels really claustrophobic. It's quite like dilapidated. It's just got that kind of like grim atmosphere.
Yeah, the scale of 2 is way bigger. And obviously you go to more different things. It's not a house in the middle of nowhere. Or to start with anyway,
No,
and then it goes, it changes, but yeah. I hate jump scares. They fuck me off like no end. So if something is on jump scares, it will just stop me from playing it.
Yeah.
Whereas see, my brother got really shit up by Silent Hill.
Yeah.
He found it really disturbing. Whereas the mechanic of having the radio static stopped jump scares. So I was perfectly fine with it because you'd hear it and you'd be like, well, there's something around somewhere. So you're prepared for it. And obviously they play into that by having like false positives and things in certain points. But I didn't have so much of a problem with that. But yeah, it's when you have the jump scares that those are the ones that kind of like screwed me up more, like playing games and stuff.
Oh, the Slenderman game, the online one. That
nice.
stressed me out. So that was another one. It was like me, my mate Tiss, and my mate Alec. Funny enough, it was like Alec who was playing Resident Evil with me as well that time. So
really?
it's like a theme here. And we were playing that, and this was like, we played it at mine, and we put all the lights off and stuff, and we like had it through my monitors. So it was like, obviously the sound was a big part of that. And I was like, right, because I've seen people playing it and stuff like online and stuff. I was like, right, I'm going to play it. And the difference between watching it and actually playing it, I was like, I'm actually stressed here. This is horrible.
Oh mate, it was mental.
Like, and I was running around for ages, and obviously you have to find like the pages, don't you?
Yeah.
And
So were you playing the original one, the 7 pages?
Yeah,
not the second one.
Yeah, there's 7 pages. So like, I'm running around and trying to find the fucking pages, and I'm not joking. I was running around for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and I hadn't found the page, and I was like, what the fuck? And they were like, and they were both like, I don't know what's going on here. Like, it normally doesn't take this long to find the page. And I'm like, does he start following you until you get a page? And they're like, we don't know, because generally everyone's normally got a page by now. And I'm like, oh, fucking hell. And you don't start getting the audio cues until you've picked up at least one page.
He doesn't appear until you pick up a page.
Well, I thought that, Aaron, but I actually I saw him in the tunnel, like, ahead. And then I think it just triggered the sequence. And I was like, oh. And I had no audio cues to work from. So I was like mega stressed. And yeah, I was just like, obviously, I got caught. And I was like, this is fucking awful. Like,
it's one of those things where, like, if you're watching someone else play, you're like, do this.
Yeah.
It's obvious. And then when you play it, you're just like, ah. And then you fall into all the same traps. Like running into the fence, or like getting trapped in the corner of trees and things like that. Yeah, I did the same thing. It was a group of like 4 or 5 of us, like taking turns to play it, all lights off, mute, like the sound quite loud.
Yeah.
Doing it, and it was always that thing of be really quiet and you're doing it, and then someone would see it and it was like, ah! And then everyone's like kicking off and doing all that kind of stuff.
Yes, when I first had a go on it, all the people I was with had already played it, so obviously knew what was happening.
Yeah.
I was just absolutely clueless, and yeah, no, it's pretty for a little computer online game. It's pretty scary.
Yeah,
it's the first case of a completely online generated folktale. Because that was a creepypasta that was completely fabricated, that got turned into
so out of hand.
that turned it into its own folklore, basically, and then from the folklore that was generated on the creepypasta, they made the game. So yeah, that's the first case of like a boogeyman style monster being created completely online in the same style that a folklore, like an imp or something, would have been created. And obviously you can trace it all the way back to the original creepypasta page about it, with the photoshopped images of, it was normally like playgrounds and stuff, with the Slender Man behind, basically. That's how that started, and then someone created the game from it, and then the game got massive, and off the back of that they made a film that is apparently absolutely dog shite, which I have not seen. Is the premise of the film is that there's two people that play the game or research into Slenderman and then think that they're communicating with Slenderman and then go and kill someone. So it actually has nothing to do with an actual Slenderman.
Oh.
It's like the second...
you have one job.
It's like the second Human Centipede. So you got the first Human Centipede, and then the second Human Centipede is about someone, like a copycat, that has watched the Human Centipede that then tries to do it themselves. Rather than it being like in the same universe kind of thing.
Right, okay.
So yeah, I'm trying to think of like any...
There was a really scary another jump scare game called The Evil Within, which I think was one of the first Xbox One games out. Well, came out fairly close to the when the Xbox One came out. But yeah, that has some mental bosses in and a lot of jump scares. It's sort of similar vibe to Resident Evil. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed that. Love a good jump scare, don't I, Connor?
Yeah. Oh, man.
What was the one with Ellen Page that mocapped for it? Was that The Last of Us?
Yeah.
Right, okay. It wasn't Evil Within.
For context, for anyone listening, what Lewis was just referencing there, we went to see It 2 in the cinema last year, like a big group of us. And there was one particular point where he literally flew out of his seat. It was brilliant. I've never seen anything like it.
I think I'm still returning to the earth from the height I got.
It was amazing.
So embarrassing.
It was just really funny though, because like I think everyone was laughing like with you rather than like it just broke. It completely ruined the tension in the cinema. Though it was so funny.
Yeah. I don't know why it made me jump so much because like it was blatantly obvious something was going to happen.
Punch yourself, mate. What was that? Oh, there was a game like with Xbox. Was it The Suffering? No. Oh, there's a really like notorious like fucking intense like horror game.
Not Manhunt.
No, I finished that a few times. That game, that's pretty jokes. Yeah, The Suffering. That was no, it's not that one. Fuck's sake.
Is The Suffering the one where you go through hell?
Yeah, it might be. I'm thinking this is not the game that I'm thinking of. Right, one sec.
Because if that's the game that I'm thinking of, that was massively hyped, and the trailers all looked really, really good, and then it got delayed twice, and when they released it, it was still really buggy, and it just died. Like Spore, that is, actually. Did anyone ever play Spore?
No.
No.
You start off as an amoeba, and you evolve over time into, like, a fish, and then a land-based creature. Then you start your own kind of, like, tribal civilization.
Condemned. Sorry, I got the wrong game. That's like pretty insane.
And in Spore you get a civilized society, then you can colonize space.
Oh.
Everyone's like, this is going to be the greatest game in the world ever. And then it came out and everyone's like, oh, this is pretty boring actually. It's not as enthralling as what we thought it was going to be. Which one was condemned then? I can't remember the premise of that.
So, let me just pull it up quickly. So it's a first-person like survival horror game.
Right.
And right, 1 second. So a lot of it's like melee combat. Like you don't really get proper weaponry.
Right.
So I'm just trying to find a quick like plot synopsis too. So you basically, you it's to do with like crime scene investigation and stuff like that.
Right, okay.
But they're like psychotic like killers and stuff, and it's like so you're like basically an agent, but like you get pursued by like these killers and stuff. But there's like loads of like, it's like jump scares, I guess, but also like stressful, like being pursued and stuff like that.
Right.
Like, but that's like, this is quite notorious for being like quite an intense game.
Yeah, that sounds like something I'd absolutely hate. I've just thought of like a couple kind of survival horror games that had like interesting mechanics. One was you could only see the enemy through a camera. So I can't remember if you had to take photos or if you had to video them you had to look through the video camera to see them.
It's photos. Oh God, I know the game you're on about.
And there was another one. Was you play a blind person, and you could only see things through sound, kind of like. Do you remember like some of the sequences in the Daredevil film where he'd hit stuff and you'd see it via vibrations?
No, I never watched it.
That's in essence the game is that you're playing a blind person and you can only see stuff through sound.
Okay.
So you have to like tap things. Obviously, if you tap things, people can hear you.
Right.
So there was that whole like mechanic, but I only ever saw that as a pre-production. I don't know if that ever actually came out or not.
The game you're thinking of, Aaron, is Fatal Frame.
Ah, yes, that the name does ring a bell now. It's a game that I've never played, but it kind of goes into the like those jump scary like clickbait kind of horror games like Amnesia.
Yeah.
What was the other one that a lot of people play that's kind of similar to Amnesia? I can't remember. But yeah, there was a little bit of a trend for that kind of like jump scare but ridiculously difficult game, and then you ended up with stuff like bloody Bloodborne, and Dark Souls, which is essentially impossible to play. And the what was the other one that they did where you have two lives? It was like the Japanese one.
Oh, Sekiro.
That's it, yeah. Were they all the same studio? I feel like they were all...
I'm not too sure. It wouldn't surprise me.
I know that Dark Souls and Bloodborne were. I don't know if Sekiro came from the same company. But bloody bastards. Imagine spending 60 quid on a game and just being
you give up on after one level.
Yeah. Takes so long to load as well. I remember playing Bloodborne and yeah, I couldn't get past the first level, but every time you died, you get the you died screen and then you sit there and it's like, oh my god, it takes like 35-40 seconds to load up again and then you gotta start again and then you get killed by the same enemy. It's like, oh, wait 45 seconds again for it to load.
I'm trying to think if well, something I wanted to discuss briefly is if you like anything you miss in modern gaming, like that used to be commonplace. So, for example, my main one is the lack of local multiplayer on games now. It actually like really pisses me off.
Yeah, I was going to say split screen multiplayer.
Yeah, like everything's just online multiplayer. It's like I sometimes actually want to play multiplayer with like the people I live with, or what person I live with, obviously, or it'd be nice to get a new game and you can go around your mates and actually like do multiplayer on the same console. You don't have to just do it online.
Yeah, I'd probably say that that's the main thing. I feel like I'm probably not looking in the right places, but like more stuff that you can just kind of dip in and out of without too much kind of commitment to stuff. For AAA games anyway, you're not going to... I don't think there's much in the way of that for kind of like AAA games, which would be nice. Got more, I guess, arcade... We were saying about arcade stuff, arcadey stuff, where you do a level and it's like 15-20 minutes a level and then you're done. And it's like, well, you can do the next level if you want, or you don't, and you can just kind of tap out. And rather than it being what I've had recently with the last few games that I've played, like Wolfenstein and Doom and stuff, is that you get to the end of a level. Doom Eternal's a bit different because you go back to the hub, but in Wolfenstein and stuff, it's like you do something, and then there's a story bit, and then you're just dropped into the next section, and it's like, oh, I feel like I need to do it. There's no definitive cut between sections, if that makes sense. I'm sure that some people would say that they prefer the fact of it just being like a constant story, but if you're wanting to just kind of dip in and out of it, it's a bit more difficult.
What
What about you, Lewis?
Yeah, mainly what you said, Connor. I swear, loads of games back in the day you could do like just like split screen campaigns as well.
Yeah, again, to mention Gears of War, that was one.
Yeah, I mean you can still do that on like the latest Gears of War, but I just swear, like almost every game you could do a split screen campaign, which now it's all just one player. But all the games have just got so expansive. Kind of what you're saying, Aaron. A lot of them, even if it is an arcade game, so like I don't know if you guys have played Far Cry.
I haven't, but I'm aware of it. Like,
so it's got quite an arcadey feel to it, but it's still open world. So, but you still have to do like so much grafting if you want to like level up quickly and stuff like that. Like, yeah, it's just got to put a lot of hours in, and like you say, sometimes you do just want to pick something up and do like half hour, and that'll be that.
Having to grind to level up for any game will put me off playing the game.
Oh, why didn't you say it grinds my gears?
I missed a golden opportunity, but it does. Yeah, it does. It's incredibly frustrating. I can't remember if I said it on the podcast or before the podcast that I was playing one of the Final Fantasy games, and it got to a point where there was a boss. I couldn't defeat it, and the answer on the guide was, oh, you have to go back and defeat this other enemy like 10, 15 times over and over again, and just keep looping around to level up so that you're powerful enough to defeat the boss. I was like, no, eject the disc, and I'm done, because I'm not going to sit there and just constantly repeat the same thing over and over again to become powerful enough on an arbitrary thing in order to progress in the game.
I broke Pokemon. Like, well, I didn't literally break it, but I think I told you about this before, Aaron. We were talking about grinding in games, like as a brief aside, like on an episode or like in a chat. And so on Pokemon Red on the Game Boy, like when I first got it, I was just like, obviously, I think most people, you just have like your main Pokemon that's like well levels above all the other ones.
Yeah.
But then when I went back to playing it like a few years later when I was a bit older, I was like, right, what I'm going to do is in the first forest, so where you just got the little Caterpies and like crap Pokemon to fight. So I don't know how many hours this took. So I trained all of my Pokemon to level 20 in that forest. And then I just like obviously got to the first gym, and it just like just battered the gym. And then like I just train every Pokemon to the same level in like increments of like 10 levels. So it just got fucking ridiculous. I think I was like a quarter into the game or like a third into the game, and everything was like level 60. I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna batter everyone.
And mullered them all.
Yeah, and I just remember like playing Link Cable with someone and just like giving them like this lad that I knew, and just giving him absolute shit time of it because I had all these like level 60 Pokemon.
Just mullered him. Absolutely mullered him. For some reason that's made me think of the funniest reason that I've heard of someone like not playing a game, which was someone stopped playing World of Warcraft, and how long ago this was, there was no expansions, it was just the original World of Warcraft. And the reason that they stopped playing the game was they leveled up enough to get a horse, and the horse didn't, and the horse didn't canter properly and didn't lean when they turned it.
Fucking hell.
It just went like, it was a straight, and then it did this.
Yeah.
And because it didn't canter properly, and when it turned, he was like, "Well, I'm not having that," and then just like stopped playing the game.
Is it as good as Harry snapping FIFA?
Oh mate, that was
that's some rage.
Yeah. But whatever he did somehow worked, because he then went on a huge winning streak against me. So I think me taking the piss out of him ruining the game, backfired somehow.
When he snapped the disc, he released the spirit of FIFA.
Yeah. He could finally play as the linesman.
He actually projected into the game.
Yeah. So, I guess I'm the real loser there, but you know.
The question is, have you beat him recently?
Yeah. The thing is, we hate the game, but we still play it. I really don't know why.
It's no Quidditch World Cup, is it, mate?
Oh, mate. Unreal levels of gaming.
That's a game that has no right to be as good as it is.
It's just dumb. Like, so many of those games, like PS2 games, are just so fun.
Yeah.
Like, even if the mechanics are rubbish and all that, they're just so fun to play. And to be fair, I kind of missed that in, like, obviously all the new games so expansive and got the mad plot lines and soundtracks and all that, but at the end of the day, is it as fun as doing Simpsons Road Rage?
Yeah. Well, the last game that I've actually played properly was Among Us, and we had 9 of us playing Among Us, and that's a really easy, fun game to play. So they're playing it on their Windows machines, but I'm playing it on my phone, and it works seamlessly. They invite me to a lobby, I go into the lobby, and I essentially, there's like no lagginess or anything like between the two systems, bearing in mind that I'm playing it on an iPhone and everyone else is playing it on a PC. And that's a game that you can pick up and stop whenever, because it's done in rounds, and no, the rounds aren't meant to last longer than like 5-10 minutes. The graphic style is like really simplistic, like almost cartoon like, and yeah, like you said, it's a fun game. Like, you don't have to think about it too much. And the best thing is that it's based on The Thing, which is hilarious. Do either of you guys know about it?
Yeah. Now you said it. Now you've actually mentioned that. It's like, oh yeah, like
it's that's like the last. Well, other than the stuff on the console that I've been playing, but that's the last thing that I've played in a group of people. But I don't know. Maybe there'll be a resurgence of games like that, because that game seems to be so popular. But on the flip side of that, Farmville was incredibly popular, and that was such a fucking. That's a type of gaming that like completely passed everyone I know by. Like, I don't know if anyone knows anyone that got really into those type of online games where they're kind of a money sink, I guess would be the best way to put them.
yeah.
Like, I can't think of any games that I've like in browser games that I would play. Apart from when I was DOSing off at school and playing like mini clip games.
Mate, mini clip. Those were the days.
Yeah, I'm definitely not playing. Yeah, like Farmville, or I'm trying to think of like the other games that. Oh God, Raid Shadow Legends. It's almost become a joke in itself, hasn't it? Really,
Mate.
Did you guys ever play that game Line Rider?
Line Rider.
I played it for 30 minutes, I think.
Oh, I remember every IT lesson trying to make mad tracks on Line Rider and nothing ever working.
Did anyone play the, was it Trials Fusion, or like the precursor to that? Which was, you controlled a motorcycle, and it was like Line Rider, except you didn't make the tracks. It was, you're on a motorcycle, and you had to get through the track. Definitely spent more time than I should have on that game, considering that was just like a free game that you could download onto your console. Yeah. Is there anything else we want to cover? I think we've covered quite a lot.
I guess to kind of cap off, like, top 3 games, like each.
I don't have a top 3, so you go, Lewis.
Right. In no particular order, I would say Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, just because just everything about it, just reminisce so much about playing that when I was younger. Completed it so many times, and just knew all the like secrets, how to get all the secret areas and all the secret Easter eggs in it.
Yeah, that was another big session game as well. Like, did session that big time.
But then, again, looking back, I reckon I could complete it in like a couple of hours now. Yeah. Whereas back in the day, I was just like spending days and days on it. But no, Gears of War, I know a franchise. I couldn't really pick out a specific game, just because I think that they're all equally as good. And then Simpsons Hit and Run. I think that'd be my top 3.
Connor?
So, Farmville. Farmville, Candy Crush, and Raid Shadow Legends.
Slender Man.
Candy Crush was the one that I couldn't think of. That was the other one, yeah.
Slender Man. No, so actual genuine answer would be, so number 1, Metal Gear Solid. For the reasons I've already discussed. 2 would probably be Resident Evil 2. So the PS1, like OG one. And 3, yeah, to be honest, like, it probably would have to be Tony Hawk's 2. Like, 1 and 2 were like big games for me. Like, I was into skating at that point as well. Kind of binned it off because I was shit at actually skating. But yeah, Tony Hawk's 2, massive game. Like, absolutely rinsed it. See, like, that whole series up to and including Underground, really. Maybe it says a lot that my 3 top games are all PS1 games. Like,
yeah, it's a hard one for me because there's games that I seshed but then never went back to, or games that I know a lot about but never completed. Like Final Fantasy VII, I absolutely adore. However, I never got to the end of it, and I actually preferred the game mechanics of Final Fantasy VIII. But the story of Final Fantasy VII is objectively better than the story of Final Fantasy VIII. So it's kind of a toss up between those two. Wipeout 2097 like formed so much of like my music taste when it comes to electronic stuff, and my general propensity to liking fast paced kind of racing games and things like that. And I've put so much time into Gran Turismo Sport this year. I should probably put that as my third one. I was potentially going to say Devil May Cry, but it went the first Devil May Cry. However, I only completed it twice, and that was like when that was the current generation console, and I haven't gone back to it since, so I couldn't tell you whether or not it's aged well or not. And I didn't complete 2 or 3, and then it kind of went completely off the rails. So Wipeout 2097, Final Fantasy 7/8, and Gran Turismo Sport. All very boring options. Yeah. Okay. Sweet. Thank you for joining us on this one, Lewis.
Cheers for having me on.
It's a good test of having a 3-man booth. See how it goes. Potentially get other people on in the future. So you were a good guinea pig for it. Yeah. Is there anything you want to add, Connor, before I sign off?
I think I just added it, mate.
Big Westwood horns all the time.
Yeah, no. Cheers, obviously, cheers, like to Lewis as well. It was good. It's good fun actually having another voice on.
Third man.
Yeah,
down.
Cheers, man. My first go at a podcast, so probably could have been better, but whatever.
This will be the case where your mic feed dies like just before the end and everything's fucked.
Mate, hopefully the internet didn't interrupt too much.
Well, my interface died halfway through the last. We had to do the last episode like 4 times because my interface died.
Fuck yeah.
So not that bad.
My sweet editing skills will sort it out in post, I'm sure. Okay. Thanks for listening, everyone that has tuned in. I'm sure by now that if you've got hold of this, that you've got hold of us on our socials. So Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. We're on Spotify, Amazon Play, Google Play, all the other podcasty sites, iTunes, all of that crap. And we will be back next week. Maybe we'll have another guest. We don't know. Thanks very much.
See y'all.
Cheers.